Morning, Dee.
Morning, Ange.
So, here we are.
Here we are.
New month of podcast.
That's right.
Third month. Starting some new topics.
Yeah.
And we are starting out with a doozy.
Yep.
Yeah. So, before we get started, I have a question.
Okay.
As a kid, what were you scared of?
Cats and curiosity.
You've been working on that, hadn't you?
No, it just came to me, actually.
Sounds a little bit like you were working on that. Had that prepared on a sticky note.
Really, that just came to me in the moment.
Wow.
Okay, ask me again.
Well, no, I already asked you once.
Yeah, but that's not the real answer.
Good morning, Dee. We're just going to start all over again now.
Mm.
So, as a kid, what were you scared of?
Weapons and mayonnaise.
I can tell this is how this is going to go.
This is so true, though.
Who gave you whippings?
My mama and my daddy.
Oh, my God. This is going down fast.
I already have tears in my eyes.
Have you heard of being a scaredy cat?
That's what you should have started with.
But you were scared of mayonnaise? Or just didn't like
I wasn't
it?
scared of it. I just didn't like
I'm
it.
just trying to be quippy.
Yeah. What about you? What are your memories of fear as a child?
I think definitely as a kid, I was terrified of the dark. I just don't like, I still don't. Like if we play hide and seek, there's that brand of hide and seek called sardines, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, nope. I do not like to be, I'm always going to, you're not supposed to have a partner in that. And I'm always going to choose somebody to go with me because I am not going to go by myself
waiting alone in the dark.
No, we had a dog, an outdoor dog. And my job was to go feed the dog scraps after dinner. And, in the wintertime or whatever, it was dark outside and you had to walk out there. No, I don't like the dark. So what are you scared of now as an adult?
I would say it's the dark. It's the burglars and the monsters under the bed.
Yeah.
And I think I just fear loss, honestly. Like it's either that I'm afraid someone's going to kill everybody in the household and I'm going to be the last one. And then the door. I have thought this through. Clearly.
Well, all your dreams are always about you protecting everybody from someone who's coming to get us.
Yeah, imminent danger.
That's wild.
No.
Yeah.
But then I think probably the fear that I have to face the most is just of loss of family and friends.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
You?
I think the first thing I thought of was I don't know if I'm afraid of this, but I don't like to be jump scared.
She gets giggly, folks.
I don't like to be chased and I don't like to be scared. Being scared makes me angry. And like if my youngest son is really big on
Jump
loving
scaring
to scare and I don't like it and I will get mad. But now to be chased, I'm going to giggle every time. Maybe if it was really serious, I wouldn't, but
maybe
in general, we would watch football all the time. And if people were chasing me over a ball, I would turn around and hand them the ball. I mean, there is not 1 ounce of me that would willingly sacrifice my body for you to tackle me to get a ball.
Remind me of that when we were playing Outback.
Oh, yeah.
Don't want you on my team.
Yeah, you don't. So as we were developing this week's episodes, we stumbled a little bit upon this topic because we were sitting with a previous question that we offered up a couple of weeks ago on the Soul Connection podcast. What was the question?
It was what happened to us.
And when you asked that question on that episode, I had such emotion. Like my throat started closing up. I felt that.
Yeah.
And so as we sit with that and ask ourselves that same question, we began to try to understand ourselves and got our huge Post-it notes out and began to try to dissect, like, what did happen to us collectively.
Right.
And so we came down to what, Dee?
Well, we think it's all about fear. That we are operating out of a collective state of dysregulation and reacting and just all rooted in fear.
Right.
Yeah, and talking this through, we came to the conclusion we think fear is one of, if not the biggest disruptor to connection.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it causes us to, it robs us of our joy, our freedom, and within ourselves as well as within our communities. And it's an obstacle to peace.
Yes.
So we have to sit and address this truth or the situation we all find ourselves in. So in typical fashion, we're going to define our terms today. Then on Wednesday, we're going to unpack both sides of the fear.
Really expose how it's used in culture, between each other.
Yes.
Really name it for what it is.
Yeah. And then Friday, talk about some practices and integration of how we can now, with the knowledge that we've gained this week, we can integrate into our own practices a way to allow fear to remain in its correct place.
Right.
That it doesn't get to dictate how we operate in the world.
Yeah.
So usually when we develop episodes, we ask ourselves at the end of Friday, what do we want ourselves as well as those who join us on listening? What do we want to have accomplished? And it's always going to be wholeness, connection. But this one too, it was a bent toward or a commitment to self-awareness.
Yes.
Both for us as individuals as well as collectively. Because I feel like there's power in that when we can begin to see fear, how it's used against us, as well as how it's used in society and within our own bodies. There's power in understanding it so that it can, again, operate in its rightful place.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things we're going to discover this week is how fear acts in our bodies, something we don't even, like, fear kicks in before we even think about it. And so to develop the awareness is really important. We hope to accomplish that this week.
Yeah. So in kicking off on today's topic, how would you define fear, Dee?
Well, it's something we all experience. So it's universal. It is an emotion that we experience when there is a perceived or actual threat of danger.
Yeah. Yeah. So what we're saying is everybody on the planet at some time or another is going to feel fear, and that is right and good and part of being human.
Yeah.
So fear in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with.
Correct.
In fact, sometimes it can be a really good help for us.
For sure, yeah. Acute fear actually protects us. Chronic fear, and I think that's where we're headed this week, we want to unpack, really can work against us. And you'll find that it's reshaping identity. You may find it's reshaping your ethics or your morals, what you'll tolerate. So
yeah,
it's going to be an interesting discussion.
We said that fear, even though it's an instinct, it doesn't get to dictate our core values.
Right.
So I think continually teasing out those differences helped me. And seeing that fear isn't weakness.
Right.
It's just information. And so that we talked about that our goal this week was to, if fear is information, then we want to help ourselves and everybody who's willing to listen to read the reports. To us, that's self-awareness, is being able to discern, take the information that our bodies and our environments are giving us and be able to accurately and wisely use that information.
Yeah.
So, but then I feel like there's times where though the word fear isn't used, it's been rebranded a little bit.
Okay, so before we move on, so I alluded to the fact about like how I experience fear in the middle of the night. And I just have to tell this one story.
Sure.
This is a story about how a perceived threat brought me much anxiety. But I was spending the night at a friend's house, and they have 2 dogs, and they lived at this point, they lived in kind of an older house that made lots of creaks and noises and stuff. And I had fallen asleep, and I awoke with a start because I had heard what I thought was a strange noise in the house. And so, and this is like a frequent occurrence for me, like something will wake me up. And then of course, then my mind takes it to the most extreme case that someone is going from room to room, killing everybody. And so, my heart's racing. I'm thinking the worst thing, and I'm laying there and then, crafting the story of what's about to happen. And I hear another noise. And then of course, then my mind is actually like telling the story so I can picture someone coming up the stairs with each creak, Well, I don't know. I lay there for such a long time. And then I heard the door open, which was a very distinct noise. Like it was like, it kind of like dragged to the bottom of the floor. So I knew that door was pitch black.
Right.
And I was like, here it is. Someone is now entering my room and tell my family I love them.
Yeah.
And it was like, so I don't know. It was just my body was experiencing very real things. And I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that door opened. And now that person is somewhere in this room. It's pitch black. I don't know. And I'm hanging on every second waiting for them to grab my foot, whatever.
Right.
So I lay there for a long time. And when I just thought, well, they're waiting for me to make the first move, I was like, I'm just going to get up and I'm going to turn on a light. And what is, will be. What will be, will be. So I all this I'm trying to do without breathing because I don't want to make a noise.
My heart is racing out of your chest.
Yes. So I plug in the light and turns out no one is in the room. And I was like, what? I know I heard the door open. And it was only this door in the house that made that noise. Well, I turn the light on and I leave it on. And I just lay in bed and try to fall asleep. At some point, it was probably 4:00. Well, my friend woke up and saw that the light was on in my room. And he came to the door and was like, Dee, everything okay? And I was like, everything's fine. And of course, we laughed about it the next day. But I'm telling you, it was you could not have convinced me that someone was not in my room. It was that real of an experience. And even though the reality of it was there was no threat, it was all about my perception. And so I think that's important as we talk about fear, that it's not necessarily an actual event that's happening, but it doesn't matter. My brain still responded as if it were real.
Yes.
Because it sensed danger. And we'll get into that Wednesday, but I think that's an important distinction.
Yes. Yes. Oh my goodness.
And now you all know a little bit more about me and my spirals of fear.
I do that with shadows.
Okay. Yeah.
Like I see a shadow and it's just like I'm convinced it is somebody, even though I'm sitting there trying to think of what else it could be.
Yeah.
It just looks too real, and the way it moves, and and then all of a sudden if you stare at anything for too long, it just gets even blurrier. So then I'm really freaked out because I'm like, I'm not going to sense when they're moving. And
And sometimes if your eye's focusing on it, it'll seem like it's coming closer or getting bigger, and you're like,
yes.
And then trying. Of course, it's the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And I can't see anything.
Yeah. Well, you don't like noises. We sleep with the fan so loud we couldn't hear anything unless they were like right up on me.
Yeah.
I can hear the wind chimes outside the window, so I can sometimes that turns into weird sounds too.
But like we said, fear it's not weakness. Like, and I think I even felt the next day talking about it a little bit embarrassed. And I do like telling everybody too, because it feels like that's so silly. You know, that wasn't a real threat. Why'd you feel that way? But it's not a weakness. It's something that happens in our body. And it is, like you said a little bit ago, it is information.
Yeah. It's our body doing its job.
Right. Yep.
But as we've noticed, especially with the constant media infiltration between TVs and every device known to man, we've noticed that rarely is the word fear used. And we decided that there were several other terms that can be used as kind of rebranded fear. I think one we said was concern.
Yeah.
Or awareness.
Right.
What were some others?
Well, urgency, protection. It's this language of there is something to fear.
Yeah.
If they're not actually using a synonym or something like that, they're still, the media is still spinning it as something for you to be afraid of.
Yes. Yes. Or even patriotism, going that far of it's rebranded as to feel this panic is really being patriotic.
Yeah.
And so trying to, again, create a little bit of a distance between what's really happening and what we're hearing and seeing so that we can make better responses and make wiser choices.
Yeah. I think we've said this before. I'm sure we'll say it again, but headlines are designed for us to click. And the more shocking the headline, the more urgent the headline, the more that feeds on the fear, the more we click, and they turn that into money. And so I know we have talked about that before, but that is so important related to this whole idea of fear. Yeah.
I think something that Deanna and I feel super strongly about within our own practice, our own journey through these topics, and then want to continually cultivate a space where other people is, it goes back to self-awareness of just helping people find what's really going on instead of just being led by whatever this outside force and sometimes partnered to trigger an inside force. However, again, I still say the time that you can separate those just enough to be able to acknowledge and to see what this is, then you can make a wise decision about it. A conscious decision, I should say.
Yeah.
Doesn't always mean I'll choose a wise thing, but at least it's a more conscious decision.
Yeah. One of the biggest things that we're, how we've exercised our thought in all of this is how people leverage power. And you were listening to a podcast recently with Brene Brown and how the distinctions with power.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
Specifically, she was breaking down 4 primary types of power. There's power to, power with, power within, and power over. And she was making the point that in really strong power over, heavily controlled institutions, organizations, governments, when power over is used by the leaders, they have to frequently engage in acts of cruelty at some level, so as to remind the people who actually is in power and who they need to fear. It's all fear-based. Power over structure is all fear-based. So keeping the masses in a level of discomfort and fear, but then we'll grow accustomed to it because, as we're going to talk about on Wednesday, our bodies will tend to normalize what is happening on repeat to keep us safe. So then the authorities, these figures and the power players have to engage in bigger and bigger routine acts of cruelty in order to shock us into a new level of obedience.
Wow.
And so it just, when I listened to that podcast, I was listening to it with Keith, and both of us were just kind of like, that makes so much sense.
Mm.
In different institutions, we've seen this, where power with or power within or power to are more partnership kind of powers, where you're cultivating a holistic view of everybody shares the power. Power within is you have power within yourself to choose rightly and to trust your own intuition and your own God-given directives in order to navigate your life.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're advocating more for, and power with. Like, we all share in this ability to participate in this particular system.
Yeah. And I would ask, I think a good question just to reflect on is, when fear is the primary motive, what kind of culture does that promote?
Yeah.
What is fear doing when it is the primary motivator?
Well, I feel like it does exactly what we've been saying the previous months, that bring disconnection, which is us versus them mentality.
Yeah.
A labeling. Who's good, who's bad, who's right, who's wrong, who's a villain, who's a hero.
Yep.
Like reducing people down, essentially.
Exactly. Flattening people down to a label.
Yep. As well as it wears everybody out. I think we're going to spend some time talking about the toll that's taken on our bodies, on our psyche, of just this constant state of being in fear.
Yeah. I wrote down a low-grade hum of anxiety.
Oh, wow.
I think about that, like, well, if you think about road rage, like just driving to and from work, you know, people are all of us, I would say, if we don't work at it, we're operating at this low grade hum of just like,
Yes.
And all you have to do is cut me off or forget to use your blinker. I mean, simple stuff. And it's just like, immediately
everybody's on edge.
Yes.
I put constant state of annoyance, offendedness, outrage, irritability.
Yes.
It sounds a little bit like how I spent the early years of being a mom. But I had experienced fear and trauma going into motherhood. And so that makes sense now looking back.
Yeah.
But in that state, I become blind to all the reality that we're like all neighbors on the planet.
Right. And the other person that has outraged you or whatever is just the offense.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like they've lost their humanity in this moment.
Yes.
They're just the
more than
offense.
likely, they're operating at the same level of irritability, annoyance, and offendedness as I am.
Right.
So again, it seems as though everybody, probably if we talked through frequencies, it would be everybody is at this really high frequencies.
Yeah.
And when you're operating at that high frequency, it doesn't take much contact for massive explosions to happen.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
yeah.
And we're definitely going to spend time unpacking that on Wednesday.
Yeah.
But for now, we're not going to stay there. We want to propose that fear hurts and helps.
Yeah.
Fear helps protect us from dangers. It has for millennia.
Yeah.
We're going to dive into that fear and flight freeze response that our brain does. It actually activates the things in our body that need to be activated for survival. It heightens our awareness. You know, our blood starts pumping faster. Things are constricting. It shoots adrenaline through our body so that we can be a more powerful human for the moment.
Right.
So fear is a good thing.
Right. Yeah. But it also can hurt.
Right.
When it becomes chronic, when we stay in a constant state of fear,
Yep.
when it's manipulated, when it's monetized, politicized, or just unexamined.
Well, and again, every time outrage gets our clicks, somebody is making money off of it. Somebody's making money off of our nervous system. So to wrap things up, really the point of this week is to bring awareness, to help us understand our nervous system. What's happening? Are we rushing to simplify people? Well, at the end of the day, we are always advocating for wholeness.
Yes.
And so the point of this week is, in order to be whole, in order to have connections with those around us, we have to address this.
Yes.
Fear. Wednesday, we're going to see how it shows up. And then Friday, we're going to talk about what do we do with it?
Yeah.
So it is such an important week on the heels of connection and even looking forward. So we hope that you won't miss any of this week. See you Wednesday.
Fear isn't weakness, it's information. But information can be distorted, amplified, weaponized.
And if fear becomes the loudest voice in the room, it will drown out connection. It will shrink joy. It will steal freedom. So this week, we're choosing courage, not the loud kind, the steady kind.
On Wednesday, we're going to look how fear is actually showing up in our bodies, in our culture, in our collective nervous system.
Until then, just notice. Notice your reactions. Notice your breath. Notice when your body braces. Awareness is the first act of courage. We want you to know that this conversation doesn't end here.
The morning share was always meant to be shared space, not a one-way broadcast.
If something in today's episode stirred a question, a story, or even a quiet yes in you, we'd love to hear it.
You can join the conversation on Substack. Send us a note at info@themorningshare.com or leave a comment wherever you listen to podcasts.
Whether you're asking a question, offering a reflection, or simply naming where this meets your own life, you are welcome here.
We're listening, and we're grateful to be learning alongside of you.